Hesher watches from the mists that collect in the dark alleys of Ozma, city of power. Its great eyes leer at the powerful merchants and ward bosses, whose confident swaggers falter as they briefly meet its hungry gaze. They shiver and scuttle off like cockroaches, back to the small ponds where they are big fish. Check out this cool little Chuck I 3D printed. It's a little Chuck for little guys. Holds them in there real nice. This little guy is Hesher from Trent over at Miscast, one of my absolute favorite craft channels. You can get him for free on the Miscast My Mini Factory page. There's also a bunch of even cooler stuff you can buy. I'm too lazy to break out the airbrush, so I'm priming by hand. It's one of those things, where the easy way to do something is the hard way, like getting through life by having a real job. Say, did you know you can support the channel by... I recently got a 3D printer, the filament kind, not the resin kind, because that stuff is just too toxic and too messy for me. And where I live, you can actually put PLA in the compost. So this little Chuck holder and this mini were both 3D printed with filament, like extruded hot plastic pasta, which to me is nuts. Filament 3D prints used to look terrible. Layer lines are pretty minimal, but there are definitely some artifacts from the supports I used to print it, and the primer can help fill in some of those imperfections. The first coat is kind of sacrificial, just to try and fill cracks, and I smooth everything out a bit with emery boards and sandpaper, and then try to get a few more layers of primer on there. So the mini is by a YouTuber. The paint, also by a YouTuber. Look, I'm a sheeple, okay? I'm easily influenced. I thought it was cool that Louise at Rogue Hobbies designed a paint set to be very bright and vibrant, as is kind of her style, but also mindful of color theory. I get the impression that a lot of people who paint miniatures don't mix paints very much, and instead just try to use individual colors on their own, which if you're painting like a large quantity of things and you want to keep everything consistent, I guess that makes sense, but that's not me, so I mix paints a lot. And the idea with this set of paints is that they're all lovely colors on their own, but also you can mix them together to make just about any color you could possibly want, especially if you use them with black and white paint as well. So I picked them up a while ago and thought it'd be fun to put them to the test. So for this little guy, I'm just using this set of colors plus Pro-Kryl's black and white paints. So I'm kicking it off with a dark turquoise and dark hot pink mix for this purplish skin, which I'll gradually mix more pink into as I go to the top of the model. I do this pretty quickly while the paint is wet, so it'll blend nicely. So, a bit more about our friend here. Many among the mercantile and political classes had felt its baleful gaze, but they rarely spoke openly of it, for fear that acknowledging the being would give it power and allow it to emerge from the alleys and act against them. But in hidden corridors and secret rooms, they theorized and conspired. The theologians among them, and there were many, gave it its name, Hesher or Heshite, for they believed that the eyes in its clawed hands were the green snake eyes of the goddess Hesh. Hesh was a goddess of passion and hedonism. Her joie de vivre and wild abandon was the stuff of legend, even among the gods. The joys of existence and of godhood were not wasted on her. She had many followers, many lovers, and many festivals in her name. And while this made her quite well loved among the people, those who vie for power and popularity found much in her to envy. In particular, some of her fellow deities, and one Osman king, Taza, who had been one of her lovers and could not abide the thought of her bedding others. The gods conspired with King Taza to perform a ceremony at the culmination of one of the great feasts in her honor that would bind her to the mortal plane in the body of a peasant girl the king would then take as his wife and keep under constant guard. At the height of the festival, the city of Ozma is alight with music, bonfires, and revelry. The king, imbued with the power of envious gods, begins the rite, and Hesh finds herself pulled from the festivities, drawn towards the palace. The rites of the mortal realm are normally rather petty, But this has a power to it. Her curiosity may have hidden from her the fact that had she tried to turn away from the ritual's pull, she would have been unable to. And so she finds herself in the king's hall, and immediately something seems off. Probably the terrified girl bound with ropes to the altar, surrounded by the king and his coterie of advisors. Repulsed, she tries to step back and realizes she cannot, or she's trapped, being pulled by great forces to the bound girl on the altar. And she understands what is happening, what they are doing to her, and how many of her own kind must have betrayed her to overpower her so completely. Looking at the bound and surrounded girl, she knows she will be trapped if she is made to inhabit her body. She calms her fury and saves her strength for the last moment before they come into contact. In that moment, it takes all of her power to divert her course, ever so slightly, into the rope that binds the girl. As she enters the rope, it shudders and animates, whipping to and fro, transforming into a great serpent. It uncoils from the girl, freeing her. At first, all recoil from the great serpent, but the girl, staring into its brilliant yellow and green eyes, prostrates herself, swearing to it that as it has unbound her, now she is bound to it. Before the king's men can act, the serpent slips under the girl, picking her up on its scaly back, and slides silently into the night, into places unknown. Following this, the festivals to Hesh were all banned by royal decree. And for the rest of their days, the king and his advisors would catch glimpses of a serpent's yellow-green eyes glaring at them from darkened halls and corridors. The girl, Mercura was her name. She was rumored to have lived with the snake-bound goddess, acting as her clandestine agent and recruiting others to do the same, under the banner of the serpentine eyes. Back to that shortly. Okay, so for the antlers, since the rest of the model is kind of dark and purpley, I want to go for a big contrast. So for the base, I'm blending dark turquoise and bright green, and gradually mixing in more bright green as I get to the tips, for a nice dark to light transition. And to continue brightening everything, I mix in a little bismuth yellow while everything's still wet. I want the eyes to be bright, so I'm base coating them with bold titanium white, which is impressively opaque. The legends are true. So just one coat will be a good base for the bismuth yellow. Yeah, it's going on a little sloppy, but I'll clean it up. And I mix in a little orange red around the edges to blend the eyes in better with the rest of the model. And I use some dark turquoise to trace the grooves in the middle of the antlers and their undersides, and bright green for the irises. Real quick, if you're enjoying these videos and would like to see more of them, consider becoming a member at paradiso.zone or right here on YouTube. Videos like this are only possible because of the support of people like you, and when you become a member, you get a whole bunch of benefits. Behind the scenes stuff, more videos, RPG books, your name in the credits. Hop over to paradiso.zone and check it out, or become a member right here on YouTube. Another way to support the channel and get some cool stuff is go over to paradiso.works. That's my online store, where you can get the mothership module I created, Warped Beyond Recognition, plus a very cool t-shirt and a lovely patch. And we're back, just doing a bit of highlighting all over. On the eyes, highlight those little boils, fingertips, elbows, face. I should pick out these eyelids up here too. And a little black line for the pupils. White and dark turquoise for highlights, which will go all over the skin. And while I'm doing that, let's get back to the story. So that was the ancient tale of Hesh, and why, when the big shots see those great big eyes, that's where their minds go. A vengeful goddess watching them, relatively minor figures in the grand scheme of things, through the eyes of a strange avatar, might seem fantastical and a bit egotistical, but people will get drunk on the very tiniest amount of power. As those men sweat and fret, a group of children playing in the street encounter the Hesher. The great eyes look past them, over their heads, but its smaller eyes, the ones in its face, peer at them with curiosity. Startled at first, they call to it, asking it what it is. It cocks its head to the side like a dog with a quizzical expression, but gives no reply. They wave their hands in front of its hands, but its great eyes take no notice of them. As the children approach it, one among their number notices that her necklace has caught its attention as it glints in the dim light. She takes the necklace off and drapes it onto one of its antlers. The creature wiggles its head from side to side, setting the necklace swinging and jingling. The kids laugh, and, now put at ease, they play around their new friend. The next time they play in the streets, the creature returns, and this time several of the children are prepared with little trinkets and bells and lengths of twine to tie them to its antlers, a chaotic assortment of improvised chimes. But a merchant sees the children, attaching the trinkets to the patient creature as its great eyes stare him down, and, horrified, he pulls the children away from it as it steps back and vanishes into the mist. Neither he nor the other merchants and ward bosses have ever been able to so much as approach the Hesher. And so, in an impotent rage, the merchant screams, accuses the children of being spies for the cursed goddess Hesh, working in concert with the creature to undermine the powers that be in the city. What followed was a lengthy and very public panic amongst the merchant and political classes. The Inquisition became involved, but ultimately it accomplished little, other than altering the course of these children's lives. None of them would play in that alley again. Indeed, for some, it was years before they were released. As some of the children grow up, they still sometimes see the eyes, sometimes hear the trinkets and bells they'd left, softly ringing and rattling. And when they do, they shudder, hunch their shoulders, and walk faster to wherever they're going. But some of the other children, seeing their friends slowly turning into the scared men that had locked them up, stuck together. Upon reaching adulthood, they ventured out from the great city to seek out Hesh, the goddess in the serpent, and her faithful servant, Mercura, figuring that any goddess so hated and feared by men such as these was worth devoting one's life to. Okay, I only attached this guy to the base with a little dab of glue, but ooh, it looks like it really stuck. So I'll use a knife to get him off of there. I thought it was so clever when I made this. And then, like, a few weeks later, Miscast comes out with a video outlining this exact technique. So, great minds, I guess. This is a texture I made by pressing air dry clay into a takeout container. Trent does the same thing, but with plaster, which is honestly a better idea. But air dry clay is what I have, so that's what I use. Now I use some more CA glue to stick coffee grounds in the gaps. PVA would be great too, but I want this to cure quickly. Cool, we've got some stones and dirt or grass or something. I'm painting it up with black and dark turquoise, I think, and maybe a dab of bright green. Okay, and then some of the orange red, bismuth yellow, and white to get this kind of warm stone tone. And this will need a few layers. I'm modeling the tops of the stones now by varying the paint mixture slightly and just dabbing it on randomly. I guess this is going to be vegetation, not dirt. Cool. So I'm just getting some bright green on there. Very nice. And for edge highlights on the stones, I use the same mix of orange, red, bismuth yellow, and white, but with more white, and maybe just a little touch of ultramarine to cool the color a little bit. Next, I just grime things up a bit by making a brown, which is just a mix of various colors and a touch of black. Really couldn't tell you which ones. And I just water it down and I go all over. Watering it down lets it wick into cracks and crevices, thereby darkening them and really helping to pick out detail. Plus, this sort of makes everything a little more cohesive. Now, vegetation highlights, just some bright green mixed with bismuth yellow, and even more modeling, and even more highlights, and then foliage. You can just cycle through the same steps on repeat forever, basically. Not an efficient way to work, but it is what it is. Now to affix our little friend to the base. I don't trust the air dry clay that the paving stones are made of, so I'm going to make sure this is a secure connection. First, by marking where his feet go. Look at these cute little drill bits. They're so tiny. So I'm going to use this brass wire, which is 0.0253 inches thick. I looked that up on the drill index. Measurements are on the left, and we want something just a little bigger than that, 0.028. The wire will get super glued in place, so it's not like it needs a super snug fit. And drill through the base. All the way through, great. And poke some little wire bits in there. I'm just dabbing a little paint on the tops of the wires, which I use to mark his feet while they're still wet, and drill a hole in 1 foot for the wire. Do a test fit. This is also nice because these models can be pretty delicate, and the wire can help reinforce them a bit. I cut the excess wire, and I fix them from the bottom with CA glue, and sprinkle baking soda on there to make a very strong instant set bond. Cut the excess from the bottom, and making sure everything comes together right. Cool. Just a dab of glue on each wire. Oop, clean that up. And on he goes. Huh. Looks like drilling the second foot nearly broke the skin here and made this little lump, but a dab of paint and no one will be the wiser. Looking all right. Now to finish the edge of the base. Loosely mixing bright green, dark turquoise, and bismuth yellow to get a kind of blotchy, mossy look. And then at the end, I hit the bottom with a little edge highlight. Okay, so that's the miniature. If you can't tell, I only decided to do the hanging trinkets part after I'd painted everything. Which, normally you'd build the thing in one go and then paint it in one go, but I'm nothing if not inefficient. So here I wrap some sewing thread around an antler and just CA glue it in place. I use more CA glue on the hanging thread to stiffen it. And here are a bunch of trinkets. A few of them are from some Frostgrave minis, and the bells I made in FreeCAD and 3D printed. So I'm actually threading this tiny little loop because I'm insane. More thread over here. And this trinket has a bit of rope built in. I should have thought of that for the bells. Another over here. I'm gonna wrap it around this little bone. This is really the, oh god, have I screwed this up royally stage. I find I just need to push through that. Last bit of thread, glue the bell on. Okay, this first bell's thread got way too caked with glue. Self-doubt is a totally normal part of the creative process, but you're really not going to know if it's bad or not until you're done. There's a lot of good stuff that spent a lot of time being bad before it got good. So, this is so fiddly. Oh, damn it, just broke the antler right off. Well, silver lining is it's easier to work with. And I can just glue it back on when I'm done. And we're back to prime time. Gotta be extra careful not to get any on the rest of the bottle. Once again, doing this out of order is kind of stupid. Very carefully getting all the rope. Similar brown concoction as before. I think this is orange, red, bismuth yellow, and black. Something like that. Brown is kind of just like dark orange. And then the bells with some white, bismuth yellow, and orange red. The little stone talisman is going to be a mix of black and dark turquoise. And And then for the bone, white plus a dab of yellow and red orange. Kind of go in a different direction for the bells here, cooling them by mixing in a bit of blue, I think. Highlight the ropes. And a little dark brown wash to bring out detail on these little doodads. Okay, and with everything done, I give it a couple days to cure and then varnish it, which I'm not going to show you because it's very uninteresting. But basically what I do is I put on a coat of gloss varnish and then cover that up with this AK Ultra Matte Varnish, which produces a really nice finish. And here's how he came out. I guess I should mention I have no affiliation with anything shown here. I genuinely just like these people's channels and just wanted to use some of their stuff. So yeah, go check out Miscast and Rogue Hobbies if you'd like to see some fun and inspiring tabletop videos. And thanks again to everyone who's supported the channel. Once again, you can become a member right here on YouTube or at paradiso.zone, and you can buy a bunch of cool RPG stuff at paradiso.works. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your support.